Thank you very much. For those that are able, please stand and let's do the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And tonight, virtue card reading, Mr. Whitmore.
Mr. Hughes,
Oh,
that's
Mr.
it.
Hughes.
All right, tonight's virtue is humility. Being humble is considering others as important as yourself. You are thoughtful of their needs and are willing to be of service. You don't expect others or yourself to be perfect. You learn from your mistakes. When you do great things, humility reminds you to be thankful instead of boastful. You are practicing humility when you consider the needs of others as important as your own, when you apologize and make amends when you hurt others, when you learn from your mistakes and change for the better, when you ask for help when you need it, when you are doing your best just to do it, not to impress anyone, and when you are grateful instead of boastful. The affirmation, I am humble. I do not judge others or myself. I value my ability to keep growing and learning. So that's humility.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then our Board of Education guidelines. With an open mind, we will establish an atmosphere that allows for the expression of all views, even when views are not in line with all members. We will work collaboratively with the district administrator by having open and honest conversations around district priorities. We will work collaboratively with all stakeholders to monitor key indicators so that equitable teaching and learning results in high achievement. We work toward building a trusting environment where both students and staff can reach their full potential and celebrate successes in academics, the arts, and athletics. At this time, I'd like to open up the floor to public comments. CWSA update. We have a special person here from CWSA. If you want to introduce yourself, and do you know all of us?
For sort of. I've come to these a while.
Okay, I'm Brian Giese,
Yeah.
School board member.
I'm Terry.
Yeah.
Brian. And we met, I'm John.
You guys?
Keith.
Good. You're all good. You know everybody.
Okay. I'm Sharon Gutowski. I'm representing CWSA tonight. I'm a business member on the board for about 2 years from Domtar, so I'm the Domtar representative there. So just wanted to give you just a very brief update of kind of where the governance council is at right now. We actually had our monthly meeting yesterday. A couple things that we're working on right now. Our contract is due in January, or up for renewal in January. So we're kind of going through section by section or group by group, reviewing that, editing it. We're finding things in the contract that are also in the bylaws that maybe should be in one or the other. So just kind of sorting that out and simplifying it. Some of the things were written very specifically. Like with some of the standards, or some things we are putting a little more general in there. So we're hoping to have that done in the next couple months, so we can have you guys review that in January and for approval for that. We are working, or we have finalized our showcase dates. We don't think you guys have to approve them, but just in case you do. So we have 4 showcase dates, basically around the end of the quarter. We've got one November 11th, January 17th, March 21st, and May 23rd. So that for 1 hour in the evening, it seemed to work very well last year, so that's how we're doing it. And the school is still not doing the early release, so the day after the showcase will be a day off for the kids. So these fit in with the end of the quarter. So
Sure, what time do they start again? 7?
right now it was 5 to 6.
Okay, thank you.
And then, we are working on doing an advance. I think it's been at least 3 years since they did an advance. This one is gonna be a little different. We're actually gonna hold it in town here, so there's not gonna be an overnight stay. We're going to be inviting the school board so we can, get together and discuss issues, that we have. I think, going kind of our strategic direction is one of the agenda items. We are trying to finalize dates. We're working with, like one of the CWSA teachers is also a soccer coach, so trying to work those schedules, to see when it is. So it may not be until after soccer is, completed, but we're finalizing those dates. And we still have to work through, finalizing an agenda there, but we know that the strategic plan is one of the items that we'll definitely go through. But we wanna get teachers, the Board of Education, parent volunteers, involved in that, so that's why we're doing it during the school year.
Good, very
And, I think that's about it.
good. Well, that's a whole lot, really. And first of all, I'd like to thank you for your support in the Governance Council, as well as Damatar's support of the Governance Council. To have these business members be part of the organization is so important. The feedback and, leadership you can provide to that group, because it is an instrumentality of the district. You are separate, and it takes people that can lead that. So thank you for stepping up and doing that. And thank you for coming here tonight.
Okay.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sharon Gutowski, is that correct?
Gutowski, yeah.
I got it right,
Yeah.
yay. The next on the agenda is overarching results. We recently, in looking at, policy governance, overarching results is an area where we were looking at the need to really kind of demonstrate on a monthly basis, and Terry, please correct me if I'm wrong, provide articles or artifacts that, on a monthly basis, that demonstrate our work towards achieving our overarching results, which are directly
Right.
related to our strategic plan and preparing our students for the future. So we had an entry in July, and for August here. do you
Actually,
wanna-
June, July,
June,
and then
July.
August, yeah.
You
So
wanna kinda go over
so
that?
the August entry, as Diane and I talked a little bit about this before tonight's meeting, we thought, and maybe Brian, you and I talked about this, but we thought all of the professional development that's happened over the summer, and we've attached that for your perusal. But what we did is we looked at the results policies that really are touched by the work that's happened over the summer. So the professional learning that's happened this summer is hopefully having a direct impact on teaching and learning throughout the upcoming school year. So that is the entry, and certainly as we continue on in the agenda, we might be touching on some of those things as the building principals share their plans and goals for the upcoming year. So that is what we've got recorded for August. Any questions?
No, it's fairly comprehensive, and, I think one thing I would like to just highlight is that the new teacher orientation began today. That's one of the items highlighted in this.
Mm-hmm.
We got a good group of people. I'd like to thank all the administrators and all the mentors that are working with our new teachers. The matriculation process is so important for them to feel part of our district and to be able to live out our strategic plan. So I was glad to be there this morning and see that group, and I wish you luck as you move through that. So it's gonna be an
Great group.
exciting time, good
Yeah.
group of people, yeah.
It's a fun day.
Yeah, a long day for you guys, I'm sure. Long day. Next, we want to hear from Mr. Brian Grill.
Hi, how are you guys?
We're doing good. Yourself?
Good. Big news, I just officially received in the mail our award letter for receiving the school safety grant round 1. So we received $44,434. So a lot of money to go towards safety. What's outlined in the grant right now is some security camera upgrades at all 3 buildings, as well as the shatterproof glass film at all 3 buildings, and training for some of our school counseling staff as well of what do you do post crisis situations, how do you handle that? So there are trainings in that area that are coming forward. We did have a meeting to discuss the security grant round 2 because the Department of Justice had money left over, so we had a meeting, we talked about, we are looking at applying for round 2 to add some, they added more allowable cost items that we couldn't have done within the last round. So in talking with our school resource officer and the principals, we decided that it'd be good for us to apply for round 2 and see if we can get some additional grant funding to pay for additional safety items. So I'll keep you guys updated on the things and items we are looking at, but we got round 1 approved, so we're gonna do upgrades there and are looking to do more in the area of safety.
Fantastic.
Congratulations, guys, that was a lot of work. A lot of work coming up by a lot of people, so thank you. Miss Lynn Knight,
Yes,
how are you this evening?
I'm good, how are
Good,
you?
good.
What's coming around is a new report that I will be utilizing once the budget is approved in October. And I just wanna briefly go through it so you kinda have an idea of what you're looking at. But this is something that you can study at your leisure as well. So the first page of the document, and this is all reports generated from our 5CAST Plus. So we pay for our Forecast 5 model. This was an additional item that we thought would be useful to explain finances for the board and to the general public. So we purchased that module as well. So the first page is, I broke it down by, this is general and special education funds, and this is revenue. Now you see up on the top the semicircles in green, blue, red, and purple. And this is as of June 30th, 2018. So it's basically the year is done, but I wanted to give you an idea of what you can be expecting once the budget is approved in October. So it's gonna look like, everything is 100%, nothing is projected, because we've already completed everything in 2017-18. So the first semicircle in green is a projected year-end fund balance as a percentage of budgeted revenues, and we are at 19.87% at the end of June 30th. So basically that means we have a fund balance that is 19.87% of our operating expenses. So typically the auditors like to see between 20 and 25. So we're a bit below, but that's just a suggestion. It's not written in law anywhere at all. The second semicircle in blue is the actual year-to-date revenues, and you can see that it's 99.88%, which basically means we received, all of our revenues that we were almost expecting. I think when I spoke to you the last time, we were a little under in our revenues, and that's what's being reflected there. If we were over, it would have been over 100%. The actual year-to-date local sources and the actual year-to-date state sources. So then it breaks it down even further. It shows you in the red semicircle how much revenue we received from local sources, and that's like fees or rentals or mainly fees and rentals. There's not a lot of local resources, but state resources is basically the general aid, the per pupil aid, the transportation aid, the library aid, anything that we receive from the state level. So that'll give you an idea of when you receive this on a monthly basis, how much revenue we have received to date based on our budget then. So for example, the blue semicircle, probably in October and November, will be all the way to the left-hand side. You'll see just a small smidget of blue, because we're not gonna be receiving a lot of revenues that early in the year. So as we receive the revenues, it'll keep growing and growing. The next one is the top 10 resource of revenues year to date. So this will give you an idea of where we receive our revenues. And remember, this is Fund 10 and Fund 27, which is general and special education. Our top revenue, obviously, is property taxes. We are a property tax district. The second one is the equalization aid. The third one is general fund, and what that means is that was our transfer from the general fund into the special education fund. The special education fund shows it as a revenue because this is a combined general fund and special education fund. Open enrollment source, that source means it's that per pupil aid that we receive from the state that was in the biennium budget. So I'm not sure why it has labeled source, it should say per pupil aid. And then the rest of them are pretty self-explanatory. The graph below that is total revenues, and you can see it's broken out by general fund and by special education fund. It gives you the budget, the projected year-to-date, and the current year-to-date. And because this year is closed, most of them are pretty even. But when you see this report in October and November and earlier on in the year, you'll see exactly how much we budgeted, how much we received to date, and how much we're projected to see for the year to date as well. So I just wanted to give you an idea of what you can be expecting for these new reports. The graphs to the right of those, the revenues by source, it breaks the total revenues down even further. It gives you the local, state, federal, and other, and it gives you prior year to date to current year to date. And then the graph below that with the green and purple, it's projected year to date versus current year to date, and that's broken out by the local, state, federal, and other. Now I know you're not gonna, get all this in this little conversation that we're having. It's for you to study these reports and ask me questions that you need to ask. So I went over the revenues. The expenditures are basically the same idea, which is the next page, except it's broken down by object, which is salaries and benefits and purchase services and non-capital, capital, and others. So what I was hoping that you could do is just take these reports, review them. If these are canned reports, so there's not much I can change in them. But if you don't understand something, just let me know, because I know it took me a little bit to get used to these reports too. Before the meeting, I was kind of studying them a little bit because some of them just didn't make sense to me. So I know they're not going to make a lot of sense, but this is another way of reviewing the financials that you receive on a monthly basis. Instead of getting that packet of information from Skyward, this gives you basically a picture of where we are at that moment. So the third page is, I want to explain this page a little bit because it is a bit confusing. This is our fund balance by month, and I want you to ignore the bar graphs. I just want you to look at the lines. Okay, so there's a blue line and a red dashed line. Now the blue line represents the current year projected fund balance per month. So you have June, July, August, September, October, November, December. That's 17 and 18. And what it's showing you, and the red line is the prior year. What this is showing you is where we are in our fund balance at each month of the year. So for example, in December, we are way below, we're in the negative, we're in the red. And that's when we need to short-term borrow in order to make our operating expenses. So because we are a taxing district, high taxes, that means that our cash flow is very different from a district that receives a lot more state aid than we do. We rely on property taxes, which don't come in until January. So between June and December, or basically between September and December, is when our fund balance starts decreasing significantly, and that's why we need to short-term borrow at that time. So those lines just represent our fund balance per month. Then when you look at the graphs, for example, the first set of graphs is just in graph form per month for the general fund. The second set is the special education fund. So just try and look at the lines first and then look at the graphs, because the graphs are basically the same thing as the line. It's just in a different format, okay? And then the fourth page is basically, a repeat of the first 2 pages for our revenues and expenses for our general and special education fund, and it basically puts it in table format, so you can see, exactly what happened. So, for the prior year, we had a deficit of 12,511, and as you can see, our current year-to-date, we have a deficit of 285,786. So I'm hoping that, you will still receive the Skyward reports by law, I'm required to give those to you to review on a monthly basis, so, but this is just an addition to those reports, and it'll give you a better picture, I guess, of where we are at each given month then. So, I know you probably have a million questions, but, I'm here if you need me.
We'll hold them for now.
Okay,
Thank you.
that sounds good.
This is kind of a neat snapshot. And as a tool for our public to understand a little bit more about, you know, how it works for
Right.
us. It's very difficult and, it's hard to understand. Yeah, but thank you very much, Lynn.
Yep.
This is
Thank you.
wonderful.
It'll take us a couple months to digest it.
I do have a question. Can this be run like by school?
No.
So it's just an overall? Okay.
Yeah, it's by fund.
Okay.
One thing I probably should have done is, maybe move somebody up the agenda a little bit.
Well, we have Candace up next,
Okay, she's right
and
there.
that way she'd get home with her family.
Good. That's who I was thinking about, and there it is right there, so, go ahead,
Well,
Candace.
she wanted to hear my speech anyway.
I did.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, wouldn't
Yeah,
wanna
I
miss,
teach
who would
gym
wanna
for a
miss
reason.
all
I
that
don't
good
understand
stuff?
any of that.
thanks for being here.
Nate does math, so.
That's why he does that. Just an update on our wellness policy. We, in November, things kind of got a little bit turned around, or changed with our wellness stuff, and, Paul Hahn and I kind of took over as wellness coordinators this past school year. And in November, I got in contact with UW-Madison, and they took our wellness policy that was in place from 2015 and reviewed it, just to see if we were meeting, where the mandates for, the 2004, 2010, the WIC Renewed Act and the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act. So they went ahead and reviewed it, and they said that our policy went ahead and did meet all, there was language in the policy to state that we did meet all the requirements. Now, just because the language is in the policy doesn't mean we were necessarily always carrying through with everything. So this upcoming year, I'm gonna be going through the policy very thoroughly, figuring out where our weaknesses are and where our strengths are, and addressing those things. We did score lowest in the wellness promotion and the implementation of the policy. So based on Madison's review of that. And then on there was the 6 areas that they looked at: the nutrition education, school meals, competitive foods, physical education and activity, wellness promotion, and then the implementation. So you can, there's a little definition with what they were looking for in each of those for that. So that's where we currently are with the policy. At this point, there hasn't been any changes to the policy. We have not done anything with that. And where we are going from here is, like I said, Paul Hahn and I are taking over as wellness coordinators. We created a charter with UW-Stevens Point to begin working on some of the areas that need improvement, and that could be done in a short period of time. Basically, it was from last January to May, so that for about 4-month period, how much can we get done? And we found areas that we need to work on. We're communicating what we currently have to our community students, the programs we have, the facilities we have, and other resources. So this fall, we created a format last year for a newsletter that'll be going out on a quarterly basis. I created a wellness website, which will be up and running then this fall, attached to the district webpage. And also, we got new fitness signs made for the fitness center, and they were put out in the community and stuff like that for them to see as well. We are looking to increase the physical activity for students in the community. I will be taking kids out at lunch this year who want to go walk the track, so that's an option to go ahead and do. We also did an activity challenge with arrows all around the high school last year. So we'll continue different activity challenges this upcoming year. And we worked a lot with UWSP doing assessments in PE to find out where our kids are currently at. We ran them, and at the high school, we took all our results and sent them back to UWSP, and they are analyzing the results currently and going to get back to us, comparing them to Port and Rapids, and then statewide, national-wide, to see where we're falling. And we also work together to create unified assessments all the way from younger on, so it's not the elementary doing one, middle doing one, and high school doing one, it's across the board. So we're going to be working on continuing that, and then this year we're going to continue working with UWSP to figure out methods of best practice for our programs and students. I'm going to be going through the policy more thoroughly to find areas of strength and weaknesses, and we're going to continue to create and participate in opportunities for wellness promotion for staff, students, and community. And the wellness committee will continue to meet once a month to ensure our progress. So that's currently what we're doing.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it was. It was a lot, real fast, so.
What were the outcomes with that analysis from point during that 4-month period?
The fitness result ones, or?
Maybe I misunderstood. They looked at us from January to May.
Yeah, what they did in January is they had us go to a meeting, and Rapids and Port were there, and we had to come up with like basically 4 things that we could do in a short period of time to, Point is looking, there's a lot of money out, and Point is looking to go ahead and find people or districts, areas to be willing to play ball to change the obesity levels and things like that, and promote stuff within schools and communities and all that. They really responded well to us and our ideas, because the other schools didn't quite, they drawn to like, well, I need more teachers, I need more, and we were more like, well, let's just get them moving more, we were a little bit more realistic, so they really bought on well to us, and that's where we came up with it. We need to simply communicate, we have all these things right here, communicate it better. We need to go ahead and find simple ways to increase activity, like the lunch, the activity challenges, getting a true read for where our kids are with the unified assessments.
Right.
So those were kind of we had a 4, I can't even remember what it was, because we really hit home on these 3
Okay.
throughout the spring, and now they're going to come back and guide us to continue further.
Thank you very much.
So,
And I like the idea about money.
of what?
Money that can help us out.
Well, we're hoping.
Yeah, sure, keep on
Fingers
working.
crossed. So,
Any questions?
Thank you.
So
Thank you very much.
for taking the time to come in.
Yes,
This
no
was
problem.
Just a great year for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And Candace has helped us put together our all-school staff picnic next Monday out at the town of Rome, so you don't wanna forget to
Yeah.
take it out there. And get yourself into a round of golf, or
Mini
enjoy the
golf.
splash pad, mini golf.
Yeah.
So hopefully you'll see the board out there.
Excellent. That'd be
Yeah.
wonderful.
I'll be skipping the splash pad.
I can see you running.
I could do it.
I
yeah.
can see you running a wheelchair through
Yeah,
there.
I could do it. Thank you very much. This is great.
Thanks, Candace.
And at this time, we want to talk about a little bit about our key plan review.
Yeah.
And areas of focus.
So I'll get it started, so if you turn your attention to this document, this is a draft, work in progress. We're working on it to fine tune this week so that we're ready for next Tuesday's kickoff. But what we wanted to do, we've been talking about this quite extensively over the summer. What we'd really like to do is, we've talked at the district level, you know, the last couple of years, we've been really focusing here. The buildings have taken this work to their buildings, so on the inside of the handout then is the work that's happening in the buildings, and what we're asking the buildings to do tonight is to highlight the work that's going on in the buildings. And then really, over the course of the year, we're really trying to get to a spot where we can show you measurable data where we're moving the needle in these areas. So that we're gonna be coming forth, you know, at least quarterly and saying, okay, here's where the goal, here's what the goal was, here's where we're at. As far as kind of like Lynn's little diagnostic graphs here. Somehow, can we show you the progress we're making on the instructional side? in a more data-rich way. So one of the things that we talked about with this is, my dream has been, and I think the board's as well, is to have that continuous feel for when our kids come here in 4K, they're getting a healthy experience at 4K. And then across the years, we're building on those strong foundational skills and the learning that happens at the elementary school. So that's kind of the look of this document. And then on the back of it, it talks about, just, us and our focus on specific strategies to improve our schools. So this is draft, just came today. This is the first time we've actually got to see it in print, so we're gonna be working with it. But for the sake of tonight's meeting, if you'd open it up, we'll start with Humke and let John talk a little bit about his goals and his plan at Humke. And then Brian's gonna chime in too, where his area of expertise is supporting each of the buildings. Okay? So like 5 minutes each to walk?
Sure. Two big things that we want kids to walk away with by the time they finish their 4K to grade 3 experiences, that have all kids be at grade level in reading and math. And so we're tracking that. We have a system that we're not going to really get into right now, but part of the things that we're really working towards is related to these 3 areas right now, the social emotional piece and the high leverage instruction. We're really focused on with the high leverage instruction. You can see first of all is the literacy. And what we're doing right there, again, you've heard me mention this before, the partnerships and comprehensive literacy. Earlier this summer, actually a week ago today, we're taking the next step in that journey, and we're really focusing on Reader's Workshop this year, and the next step with Language Workshop. And so that's what we're focused on in that. Co-teaching, this is our 3rd year at Humke right now. Brandon, I kind of jumped in there. Did you want to dive in a little bit of that and tag team with me on that?
I can take team, but I can also go at that and kind of talk co-teaching at each.
Let's do that. So I'll back off of that right now then too. We are also, just today again, we took the next step with math. That's kind of in the cooker right now, in the hopper. There's nothing we're working on in the classroom, but right now we have a group who's working on identifying that next step in our math curriculum, and that's a focus for this year. And preparing for next year and what professional development we're going to need for that. And Nathan and I are doing that actually K-5. The other thing that we're really focusing on right now is a week ago this past Monday, we took time to take that next step in our social emotional plan and learn more about conscious discipline and the work on related to that, and getting things organized for that. Now throughout the school year, so things don't fall off, we have systems in place to kind of have action teams in our building, and these are the vertical teams that we have in our team for individuals to do that work to really take us to that vision. So that's a quick overview of the goals and the work that we're doing to get to that next point. And within that then too is the element of really, well, Brian's going to talk about co-teaching and equity. I'm going to that. Any questions you want to ask me before I turn it over to Nathan?
Well, do you have a question?
No.
Well, I would say, so the next step is them continuing to work with their teams and really write specific goals that's going to be measurable. So that I'm going to be visiting the schools and really asking good questions about the progress that's being made around those goals.
And having this plan come to the board, to look at and the changes, I think there's some really good information in here. If there's changes, we'll read up.
Yep. Yep. Mr. Lack,
I'll
thank you,
just
John.
continue on those, and I'll just use your document in front of you and just sort of work. The first area, high leverage instructional strategies, is one that we've been consistent with across the board. Like, for example, literacy, we've got our group that's all actually meeting tomorrow, and we've got a full day of training that's on now this is year 3 of us doing this at the middle school, and so we're a little further down the road with that for having some systems in place, and so we're excited how that's starting to evolve. Math, it's CPM math grades 6 through 8. Really depending, our newest 7th grade teacher spent 4 days of full training. The other ones who have been doing it for a year, we spent 2 days of training. And so she went ahead and accompanied the high school team up in the Wausau area for that. And so we really this is a 6-12 area that we really have our teachers interacting and working together on that. And it's really been very exciting to build a system where they're supporting each other throughout that. On the science, we had just yesterday, we had the 6-12 science teachers all together working on identifying and I'm gonna leave that more to Keith, because he'll probably speak into that a little bit, but it's just been phenomenal about, here's a common vision of how we can leverage our local resources of the school forests, and the Nell and various places that we have here to really create a unique experience that we can offer here in Nekoosa that very few others can. And that's what we're working to develop in that front. Co-teaching, it's all yours, Brian, when we get there. Now, a lot of the two areas, that's one of the certainly areas of focus, and certainly everything I just mentioned impacts different teachers. There's very few that it touches every single one of those. However, everybody at Alexander Middle School is really focused on the area of teaching the whole child, this social and emotional learning. We had a whole staff being trained for a full day on responsive classroom. This is our second year, so we can get some systems better tightened up with. This is ways that we make sure that everybody is basically understands what the expectations are, how we reteach, what are responsive ways to be able to effectively help people learn the skills of how to be able to work socially. And especially all of the high leverage instructional strategies I mentioned are designed to help students work independently and to grow. However, to do that, you can't work independently and work in groups unless you've got social skills to be able to map and to be able to help and regulate that. And so that's a big focus on our responsive classrooms. Not to mention, we've spent a lot of time working on our behavioral support systems and how we're going to head, and especially this is just middle school is a time of growth. It's a school of pushing on its boundaries. It's a time of learning those areas and ways that we can support teachers and students in doing that. And particularly working, a lot of time has been put in with the MTSS and various people that we're very excited to talk with our staff, our whole staff about that next year. So that, in a nutshell, we're focusing are the two major areas that we're really digging in on, with the caveat that Brian will go ahead and do amazing things telling you about co-planning when we get to it.
So at the high school, you can see all teachers are part of a learning team, and within those learning teams, they're looking at a lot around learning targets and then assessing needs and making adjustments in the moment. Language arts and English, we have the continuation of the workshop model. We're in year 3 of that, and really the exciting part is the teachers are at a point now where it's really driven by the teachers, and so that is getting pretty close to what would be institutionalized, as far as we look at the 4 years. Social studies, we're at year 2 of the inquiry model, and also workshop model is a piece of that as well. There's a lot of exciting work we did this summer, especially around writing and discussion in the social studies classroom. Science, like Nathan was talking about, yesterday we had 6-12 together looking at place-based learning, the idea that we have, you walk outside our doors and literally walk outside the school doors, and we have 100+ acres of diverse land. We walked through quite a bit of it yesterday, and the people who know more about it than I do explained the oak barren and the prairie area and the
So who was here for that?
wetlands, and so for trainers. Well, we had Betsy Ramachia, who is with Experience Institute, was our facilitator, but then we also had a woman from the Wisconsin Center for Environmental Education from UWSP, looking at how UWSP can collaborate with us. And then we also had Richard Breen from Midstate Technical College looking at how Midstate can partner with us as well on place-based learning, with a special emphasis on the Nell is what we were really looking at yesterday. It's really, in many ways, it's a jewel right outside our door, and so that's exciting and evolving, I would say.
If I could just
Much
interject quickly.
evolving.
6-8 also means CWSA 6-8.
Correct.
Was very
Yeah.
much a part of that. It really, they add a lot to that conversation.
Yeah, it was the whole group, yeah, a lot. It was everyone that teaches science. We had Nancy Brose was unable to make it, but other than that, everyone who teaches science in our district, grade 6-12, was in attendance yesterday. So
Rick
it was
Schmidt
exciting.
caught wind of that. Rick's our public works
I
director.
talked to Rick about it yesterday.
And he's very excited about, he'd like to be involved. The city created what they can call a comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. And our facilities, or our land is actually in there as a mixed use
Hmm.
Yeah.
issue. So and he's got a lot of experience professionally working with that, so.
And he's worked with Mike Shanefield a little bit and wants to work more
Yeah.
with him on
Yeah.
some urban forestry things
Yeah.
as well, so.
Good.
Yeah, I think a lot of exciting
Wow.
possibilities there.
The words are getting out there.
And then Matt, we
One night.
continue with the CPM and the study team strategies. This year we roll up to geometry, so what is traditionally most likely our sophomore level math class for most of our students. All of our teachers were able to attend. We have our newest math teacher, Adam Coyer, who is a Nekoosa alumni. He was in attendance as well. And then social emotional, I would say a lot of our social emotional learning, although we do have a team that's going to be looking at a trauma sensitive school and what that looks like, and then bringing professional learning back for everyone. But a lot of our social emotional is in the realm of the social and the collaboration and the workshop model, the team study strategies. I mean, those are all pieces that really get at collaboration and problem solving, peer conflict resolution. A lot of different social skills are built into the work that's happening in the classrooms on a daily basis. And then equity, I would put in there that at the high school level, our equity has a lot to do with doing everything we can to help every student with their post-secondary plans. And our academic and career plans is certainly a big part of that. You heard Jen last month talk about, she's going to be going to the National Career Pathways Conference to present on what we've been doing at Nekoosa High School with our advisory and academic and career plan system. One of the big things we need to do though is start reviewing our curriculum and our course offerings for where they match up with career pathways. And that's that.
And then in looking at co-teaching, once again, many of the schools are at year 3, so pretty much institutionalized, and we're working on developing it. But one thing we did differently this year, previously this training has been provided through Black and Black, but with the experience and knowledge we're starting to gain with our teachers, we wanted to tap into them as a resource. And also the Wisconsin Department of Instruction also came out with standards of what is all entailed in co-teaching and what are all the components that need to be involved. So this year there are 3 areas of co-instructing, co-planning, and co-assessing. And the training I provided, I did 2 days, one with our new co-teaching pairs and one with our returning co-teaching pairs. And with our new pairs, I really went over building a foundation, building that relationship as a co-teaching pair, and looking at the co-instructing and co-planning and making commitments to each other to put the time and effort into co-planning and really getting to know each other. But as for our returning pairs, we're really looking at that co-planning and adding that specifically designed instruction for our students with disabilities into the co-taught classes. And as time develops, we're gonna move into that co-assessing piece and really using data to drive our decisions. But we are moving from a model where we were having an outside organization come in and lead that to we're taking that on as an organization to say this isn't gonna go away when that outside agency goes away. This is something we live and believe in as part of what we think is best practices for students here in Nekoosa. So that's where co-teaching comes into play.
Thank you, Aaron.
And then another part that's not on here though, under also all the social emotional plans, we have about 50 staff members that are certified in the nonviolent crisis intervention training through the Crisis Prevention Institute, and I am your licensed instructor in that area. And we are really trying to build knowledge in that area of how do we help students in crisis verbally. So they learn the physical side, but I'll say that is not the side that I always emphasize the greatest amount on. I want staff to have the proper verbal skills to help a student through crisis. They learn both, they have knowledgeable, but we really emphasize the verbal skills, and that also helps in that social emotional learning as well. You guys have been doing that for years, and we've gotten to this place when I have talked to other districts that provide CPI training, the number of staff we have trained and certified is a lot of times what districts are aspiring to get to. We want to do more with it and giving staff the verbal skills, but to have them duly certified in verbal and physical, like I said, we have about 50% of our staff who are certified in nonviolent crisis intervention.
They'll be signing up for the class now.
It's a good time. You get 2 days with me.
So thank you very much. A good snapshot of where we are, and does the board have any questions?
A lot of
related to any of
information
those
there.
plans?
We'll have to look through that.
But do write draft on this, because we don't necessarily want this out.
A lot of good work here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Diana, thank you for your work. Diana's been trying to help put this together with the help of Dream. That's it for the strategic plan? Supporting documents.
Thank you. Employee handbook, we were provided a copy of the employee handbook. No real big changes. Calling for a motion to approve the employee handbook.
A second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Informational Chamber Choir trip to Chicago, April 4th through 7th, 2019.
And I think Bill sent you a copy of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Looks like a good time.
What's that?
That looks like a good time.
Yeah. Policy governance, review ownership linkages. We met last week, Thursday, to talk about where we are. The first item we talked about was board district administrator relations, BSR-3. And that was the one that didn't print off.
I got it here.
I have it right here. Good. I knew I had it open for a reason. As the board's interpretation of this is, I interpret this to mean that the board is only accountable for the district administrator. All staff conduct and district operations are accountable to the district administrator. We looked at this and, you know, the board has worked well within this policy. We've charged Terry with that exclusive responsibility, and we as board members refrain from giving direction. And, you know, via policy governance, we're not allowed to. As individuals, we have no power, of course. We enjoy the freedom that we have, you know, being in your buildings and seeing how things are working, but, you know, we are just individuals and we're there by ourselves. There have been several instances where situations have come forward and, you know, they've been directed to the district administrator appropriately. You know, we're responding to our stakeholders. If any of our stakeholders have concerns, our responsibility is to bring it to the district administrator's attention, reinforce I gotta say, first of all, reinforce the chain of command. Have you talked to the appropriate people within your building, and then, you know, bring that to the attention of Terry if all other things are exhausted. So we didn't find any non-conformances, no violations, so the board finds itself in full and complete compliance. So I'm gonna call for a motion to approve B4/SR-3, board district administrator relations as presented and verified by the board.
Make that motion.
Second. Thank you. The next one, OE3, treatment of stakeholders. I don't think we need to.
All in favor on that last one,
Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next one is OE3, treatment of stakeholders. Go ahead. This is the interpretation District Administrator's interpretation. The District Administrator will manage information in such ways that confidential information is protected, effectively handle complaints, maintain a district culture that values individual differences of opinion, reasonably includes people in decisions that affect them, provides open and honest communication in written and interpersonal interaction, and focuses on common achievement of the board's results policies. And lastly, maintains an open, responsive, and welcoming environment. Mr. Whitmore has provided a great deal of evidence of compliance. Would you like to review?
Well, I certainly would. We took a look at, last week we took a look at our employee engagement numbers, and then with that we looked at some work around our culture survey and parent survey information. So what we have found is that from the Gallup poll on employee engagement, around 5 different questions that have been asked over the last couple of years, we're making some improvements. One area that, and I'll just read those. In the last 7 days, I've received recognition or praise for doing good work. So we've made significant growth in that area. My supervisor or someone at work seems to care about me as a person. We've made a small amount of growth there. One area where we've dropped a bit is there is someone at work who encourages my development. And the one that we continue to work on is at work, my opinions seem to count. We did make a few percentage point gains there. And in the last 6 months, someone at work has talked to me about my progress. We made a small gain there. And that's, we do the employee engagement survey every year, so we'll continue to track that. And these are questions that were pulled off from there that really help us get a better picture of that treatment of stakeholders. And the other survey that we dug into was our year-end parent survey. And the questions that I pulled from that survey were, Nekoosa School District is a caring and nurturing place. So we have 75% of those people taking that survey in this last year either agree or strongly agree that Nekoosa School District is a caring and nurturing place. And that is up a bit. My child has a close relationship with at least one adult in the school they attend. 79% of the people that took the survey said they agree or strongly agree that they have a their child has a close relationship with someone, at least one adult at school. And then 66% of our reporters say that they feel welcome to visit their child's classroom at any time. And then the last question we pulled from that survey was 74% agree or strongly agree that they are satisfied with my child's education at the Nekoosa School District. So I mean, you saw the graphs, it kind of trending upwards, so that's a good sign. And then Doug had asked, what about the student surveys? So I went back and I pulled that information. And if you look at this, it shows 2015, 16, 17, so we've done it 3 years. And 15, 16, I noticed that we were below the nation in every area, not by much. But in 17, if you take note, we pulled ahead of the nation in a couple of areas, and one was my teachers make me feel my schoolwork is important, which is great. I have fun at school. The nation's got some challenges there to work on, right? Mm-hmm. But we did better than the nation. And then in the last 7 days, someone has told me I have done good work at school. We're ahead of the nation there, and the adults at my school care about me. So that's exciting. So Doug, thanks for asking about that. And we'll make these survey questions part of this policy every year. Now that last page just kind of shows you the trending upward that's happening across the district. If we go down, that safety one is one that it's kind of hovering, staying the same. So I wanted to just add that. So we'll make any comments or thoughts on that?
No, but thank you for putting it together.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
And one of the strengths we found here as a board is the communication plan that's been developed. The communication plan that they've been working on outlines work to be completed over the next, how long? Year?
Yeah,
Year?
or more.
Or more, and it's very, you know, we recognize it as strength that it's being implemented. One weakness, and it's not really a weakness, you know, we try to look at, you know, how we can build. But what we wrote down was strive to engage in active listening so that internal and external individuals feel that they were listened to and that their views matter. That's a tough one. We can interpret that in a lot of different ways. Any comments? Okay.
Nothing. But it is something we need to work on.
Yeah, and I think, you know, just striving to engage in that active listening. The other thing that we identified is evaluate ways to increase engaged employees. Continue to work with the measurables identified. Did we have that engaged employee number? We did review that last
Yep.
week. And so we'd like to get that employee engagement up a little bit.
Well, let's put Keith on that. Keith, we're looking for, so right now, in February, 35% of our employees identified as being engaged or highly engaged. And we're wondering, Doug had the question, or the board had the question, so how does that compare with the rest of the nation?
Just the rest of the nation in their,
In the
or
workforce?
education.
Or education, if we can find some comparatives.
Some comparatives would be, yeah.
Sure.
Because when you look at 35% engaged, and I know I remember seeing the nation and the engagement level, and it seemed low. But, so right now we have 59% not engaged. Now let me read what it means to be engaged. So engaged employees are involved in and enthusiastic about their work. So that's 35%. So 59% of our people who, they're termed not engaged, those who are not engaged may be satisfied but are not emotionally connected to their workplaces and are less likely to put in discretionary effort. And actively disengaged workers, and we have 6% of our staff saying that they're actively, or not saying, but rated as actively disengaged. The actively disengaged are emotionally disconnected from their work and workplace and jeopardize their team's performance.
Thank you, Terry.
Yep.
And again, this is very strong, and I think the administrative team, Terry, should be very proud of the work that's been put into this. And, you know, the treatment of stakeholders, that's our number one priority, is ensuring that we meet their needs. So thank you very much. Good job. OE3, at this time, I'd like to call for a motion to approve OE3, treatment of stakeholders monitoring report as presented and verified by the board.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carried. OE4, Personnel Administration, we're gonna cover this just briefly. Last month, we didn't have a full board and we didn't have a chance to have our Thursday meeting. And we wanted to just kinda identify strengths and weaknesses of OE4. A strong policy, a lot of it is, what would you say, laws and such,
Guidelines.
and such. The hiring process is greatly improved. We'd like to thank everybody for the hard work they put in on putting these interview teams together, and a couple of things that popped up as far as opportunities, evaluate including a board member for administrative positions within the interview teams. And the second, evaluate advertising and selection process for coaching positions. Strengths have been recognized in the improvement of the selection process overall. Consistent practices must be implemented. And then also, we also want to recognize the strength, the district team, and then everybody else, needs to be recognized for the work and the application of the wage increases that we were able to accomplish last year. That was a lot of work on your behalf, the individual administrators, and the time that you spent with the teachers. it was a huge process, and we as a board would like to thank you for that. It brought us to a different position, and one that we can build on as we move forward. Questions, concerns? Okay, that one was already approved. We just wanted to identify those strengths and weaknesses,
Yeah.
so. GP3, board purpose.
Let me read the
you wanna
statement.
read it? Yep.
The board's governing style will emphasize the district vision, encourage diverse viewpoints, focus on strategic leadership, observe the clear distinction between board and district administrator roles, make collective decisions, exhibit a future orientation, and avoid reactive governance. So that is the governance process. Do you want me to go on and read the interpretation?
Sure.
The board will cultivate a sense of group responsibility, working in partnership with the district administrator, staff, students, parents, and community. The board will be responsible for excellence in governing, using individual board members' talents and expertise to enhance the board entity while preserving the board's collective judgments and values. The board will hold itself accountable for continuous governance excellence, applying a high level of collective self-discipline in attendance at and preparation for meetings, observing policy-making principles, demonstrating respect for board, staff, and constituent roles, engaging in capacity building for excellence in governing, and conducting effective, efficient meetings. The board will conduct its business at meetings using the parliamentary procedures detailed in Robert's Rules of Order for small boards.
Thank you, Terry.
One more. The board will direct, control, and inspire district operations and results through the implementation of carefully written policies.
That's a whole lot there. And one thing that, that we call ourselves on as a board is the fact that we're responsible for professional development as well. And that we need to actively engage in looking at the workshops we might be able to do, how we can improve in our governance process. The importance of, our attendance at the monthly meetings. And this policy, we didn't, on here I didn't have enough, there wasn't an area for me to write weaknesses down. We did document this on a previous one. Which one was it? I don't recall. But we did document that as a weakness for the board, and we will be working on that over the next 6 months. So at this point, this was sent out to all the board members. There were no non-compliances found. At this time, I'd like to call for a motion to approve GP3 governing style as presented and verified by the board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consent agenda. We have one donation from the consent agenda. We had $65 for backpacks for kids from Sacred Heart Collections. Thank you very much. Those donations mean so much to our children, and thank you very much. At this point, I'd like to call for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Future agenda items. Board workshop September 13th. Regular board meeting September 18th. Communicating with the board. Bus driver appreciation. We also have that picnic next Monday that we should strive to get to. It's a family night, and it should be a lot of fun. I'm anticipating that we're going to try to get some policy meetings in here. We've identified through the governance policy process, through the review, and just through having experience throughout going through it for over a year, that we need to work on some policy changes. Mr. Hughes said you did a wonderful job pulling this together, but we need to make some of those things fit for the way that we work. And really, it's been so perfect, we haven't had to. But I think we can do some work on some of those. And,
Yep, I agree.
we need to work on developing that list and getting some policy meetings going. So I would like to thank everybody for their attendance here tonight. One thing we're going to do next week too is bus driver appreciation. I don't know if I said that.
Next month, yeah.
Next month. communicating with the board, and then learning environment and treatment of students. Some pretty big ones there. But at this time, I'd like to,
Right, could I interrupt for a second?
yes,
I'm sorry.
please.
I forgot to mention it during my little report, that, the drinks and the treats were from Matt at
Oh.
Clever. And he just wanted to make sure everybody, participated.
Sample.
Well, thank you very
Take
much,
it-
Matt.
take a sweet roll.
I didn't want to have any before the meeting started, but now
Oh.
that I know who made it, I'm gonna have some.
Yes, yes.
Well,
So we
thank you
brought
very
that
much,
over.
Matt. Thank you very much, Matt. And at this point, I'm waiting for Mr. Brian Mahal.
Well, 1 second though. You didn't finish, I mean, you skipped over an agenda item.
I did not.
And that is review ownership linkages. Do we need, Diana, anything on that? Or is that just on monthly? So is the board wanting to connect right now with, like, the town of Rome, the council out there, or Saratoga
You know,
town board?
when I looked at this tonight, Diana, thank you for helping me with that. But I kind of looked at this in relation to the ownership linkages in regards to the board conduct and how we, how we should be actively seeking to engage with people.
Yeah.
Does it fit within that policy, or where do you see it fitting? And I'm open for suggestions.
Absolutely.
Well, we've got it written into the calendar that quarterly we'd be deliberate about focusing in on, different clubs or churches or organizations or town boards where we'd actually have some type of engagement
Okay.
to learn from them how they think we're doing
Okay.
as a board. So we really haven't gotten to that point yet, and it's not that we're in a hurry. We did the strategic planning last year, but it would be kind of fun to try at least one where we would put a little agenda together, and maybe the town of Rome, or we have never been to Saratoga.
I think we need to hold a meeting at the town of Rome as well as Saratoga. But,
But
why don't we discuss this further at the workshop next
Okay.
month? And try to link it with the policy. Which policy is it linked with, Diana?
It's actually all of them,
All of them.
yeah.
So.
So, and it wouldn't have to be the full board going to Saratoga, but maybe a couple of board members go out there and just have a dialogue with them to get their view of what they see happening in our schools.
I apologize, Dan, for skipping over that. You called and told me about it, so
No, I just wanted you to think about it.
I thought about it.
Did I say, I mean, Diana, have you interpreted that any differently than what I just shared?
Ownership linkages is a big
Yeah.
term, and, it's how do we engage our stakeholders?
Yeah,
And our stakeholders can be our teachers, can be our students, and it can be the other, the
Yeah.
people out there that, are part of our district, be it the town of Rome, town of Saratoga, the town of Fort Edwards.
well, you get to hear from our student rep, so that's a little linkage there.
Right.
But what other areas, the senior citizens? Maybe somebody would show up at one of their meals over there, just to have a conversation with them and learn from their perspective how we're doing.
Yep,
That's it.
I agree with it. Well, thank you very much, and we will expound upon that. Why don't we put that on the agenda for the workshop next, September 13th, Diana? Thank you.
I look to adjourn.
We have, any other items before we adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned.